Hello and welcome to another, series of episodes for the Jumo Ring. Today I appear to be joined by an erstwhile Jason Enos, who has joined the Discord channel, much to his surprise.
Hello.
Yep. And we'll be going through the Risen Sun cycle cards, including the two which weren't in the pack, but are available on the models they apply to. So it's all in alphabetical order by faction. So it starts off with Cult, goes to Ascension and so on my screen. So first off, we've got Desperate Measures. The flavor text is failure to deliver the seventh orphan child has driven Akira to pursue more dangerous options. The story behind this is from one of the short stories prior to my time for GCT, where Akira attempts to turn Aiko into an orphan and does not succeed. And this card is meant to reflect that, or the flavor text reflects that. But what use does the attachment have? It increases a cultist value, but the model can only hurt itself when it's using its own cultist. There's some interesting design stuff I want to do with this, but currently I'm not sure which models would benefit this the most. Maybe Burakuma in the Yuto warbands? Is it Josei who gives them the healing, the regeneration?
Yeah, while they've got regeneration, this is obviously a lot better. Also, the Yuta themselves, the one that's got cultist, can be healed by a number of means. So, although she does also spend her health for other things. So, there's a few good options.
Yeah, so I think this isn't a great card yet. I think this could be a great card in the, I was going to say imminent future, but with the coronavirus delaying everyone's plans, in the foreseeable future. We can see it in the distance, somewhere on the horizon. Next up we have New Moon, the card Jim Lawrence is thankful for, no doubt. There seems to be an awful lot of griping about the Harinago, who I think is still very good. I mean, entangling, unlimited entangling pretty much, I think is pretty awesome. She's lost her damage though, because of entangling, and this gives her back the range attack damage, and it's a flat modifier, which I think is pretty crazy, considering she was killing a lot of people with -2 in both editions. So if you like the Harinago, this is the card for you. It doesn't require a huge amount of explanation. It goes on one model, makes her better, costs 1 rice. If you like her, it's all good. Surprisingly, makes her very good at killing big models, since she's got lightweight. It's not big range, but she'll still do the damage with it. We've got one of yours, Jason, Primitive Rage, which is for tribesmen, gives them or makes them berserk during starting phase, but they get powerful attack 0. So I can't remember if Telluric Tug would be a prime contender, or if he's already got powerful attack. It's been a while since I've used my
I think it makes all of them into possible finisher models, which is the main thing. If you set it up right beforehand, any of whoever you put it on basically becomes the guy who can go in to a one-sided combat if you've got somebody who's outnumbered already, for example. They are berserk, so it's a difficult setup, but using the powerful attack on anything is, +3 is a huge swing on a 2d6.
Yeah, and they've all got built-in brutals, so that's going to be great fun. Can't remember if Ben used it in his his Suzumi style warband with the extra tridesman. I'll have to go back and listen to his podcast again. Next is something of a dark horse card. No, it isn't, because I've not got the correct window selected. Now we're up to Royal Mandate, which play during the starting phase until the end phase. Enemy models gain weak when making size tests. For Tengu, there's no nets, so this only really applies to the two big Tengu, Buzembo and Hokibo, and Sujobo if you bring him. And I think it's very good. We've had a lot of positive, not feedback, but positive opinions on its goodness. But I've never actually seen anyone take it on the table. I think this is more of a thing that Tengu would like to take, but they might have more reliable get out of jail place effects. I mean, they're more expensive, and also you're using this card on the super expensive models like Buzembo and Hokibo, and Sujobo even. Sujobo is still ridiculously expensive for most profiles. So, but on the other hand, if you need to get someone out of a zone, Wing Buffet is really, really, really good. So I expect we'll see that one in a fair few warbands.
It's got a little Tolkien reference in the flavor text as well.
Really, I was wondering, because I remember I tried changing it and you kept changing it back. It's like, okay, fine. You clearly want that text.
It's reversed part of the Aragorn poem. Okay. The crownless again shall be king.
Okay. I am rather infamously not a LOTR fan, but that's not for the Jumo ring. So, right, greatest sacrifices. I actually really like this one. So playoff turn acolyte is removed from play through a friendly unique effect or self-sacrifice. There were friendly unique effects that removed some of the acolytes, some of the children of Orochi and Kazuhiko last edition. I believe they all got chucked, but just you wait. Something along those lines might come back. All friendly Shisei models gain 2 chi tokens. So, Shisei with more chi, what more can you want? It costs 2. I would generally save it until my acolyte's about to croak it. I wouldn't just throw an acolyte on the altar of sacrifice on turn 1.
Yeah, I think this is one of the ones that I discussed in the article that went up, and just the amount of tokens that it generates is huge. Because you could have 5 Shisei, so that's 10 free tokens for just 2 rice. And I think it's also a good one because it really shows some of the story that's going on in the clan as well with the flavor text.
Yep, not to be outshone by an outsider, the faithful of Orochi throw themselves upon the altars of the Snake Kami. So that is... Itsunagi is the outsider in question. He is not part of the cult of Orochi, he just does his own thing. And much to the annoyance of the cult of Orochi, Orochi seems to like him the best. But hasn't turned him into a snake. Shocking stuff. So far. Next up we have Itsunagi's Retinue, which is attached model begins the game with 2 chi. It does mean you can't bring any Shisei acolytes, so no Temple Bushi, no Chio, my favorite base profile. Well, yeah, my favorite sort of base plain profile in the Ito. So, a little bit limiting, but very Lords of Izu. Masanagi certainly appreciates the extra chi. Trying to think who else would really benefit from it off the top of my head. Masanagi's the big, like, standout, will benefit from this. Itsunagi already starts with the chi still, does he?
Yeah, Mizuki's another interesting one for this.
Oh yes, because she's Sujenya. So, yeah, but the problem with her, she usually wants an acolyte. Just, yeah, that does. Yes, that does. I was about to say she usually wants an acolyte to get extra chi, but you don't need one. So I'll have to look into that one. I totally missed that you could put it on Mizuki. So,
And obviously, again, the other side of that same bit of conflict within the Ito, this is Itsunagi's retinue sort of shunning the church because they're following the Messiah rather than what the priests are.
Yep. I very much expect many jokes about the Messiah. Next up, we have the Conclave of Captains, one of the more significant story events going on at the moment. This is all the young captains getting together to figure out what do we do with this Black Eagle fellow. He seems like a bit of a drunk. So Friendly Contra, it's a theme, one of the very few themes in the Risen Sun set. I will say we did try to do that on purpose, keep the number of themes down. Friendly Contra models gain coordinated attack Contra, so suddenly your Contras can help each other. It doesn't come up very often though. Most of your Contra want to be, or they're powerful enough to spread out individually and do their own thing. And Kaizoku models gain the Villager type, which caught me by surprise because you changed it from how I suggested the theme was going to be. It's a bit of a Kaizoku focused theme. Yet again, I'm sorry, people who want more monsters, but you don't bring monsters to board meetings unless it's Ed 209. So the Villager type is there because of, as you said, the Ashinaga Tenaga, which has Believer for Villager. So suddenly all your Kaizoku can do their chi feats for one less, which is pretty big for people like Jori and Yori, and I think Taru, and possibly Sho. I think they're the big benefactors. Oh, Timo gets a lot out of that. So overall, pretty good. And also you can bring Hiroto, and by extension, eldest brother in this theme, which has proven pretty terrifying when you bring them out with Jung.
I don't think you can have Timo in this, but
oh no, you can't. No, it's Ronin Yokai, but he would have benefited immensely from it. But oh well.
Well, yeah, they have some of the best very low cost models in Jung already, and adding Believer to that is a huge benefit. I think the first one only Hibiki really gets to use it because he could always get to where the other Kancho are if he really wants to.
Yeah, he can get that Cloud Walk if he really, really needs it and get there. So far, in the previous iteration of it, I think I got the coordinated attack off once, but that was because I'd wiped out everything except for like 2 enemy models in that game. And there's nothing else for my Kancho to pick fights with. Colin Tuff was most appreciative of that. That was our first sort of foray into Risen Sun, though. Next up is Miyakomo Rising, which is as Ryujin rises from the depths, so does the power of the Sea Witches. This card seems to be getting a lot more mileage than I thought it would be. I thought we wouldn't see this card until we see a certain release in the imminent future, because it means that the Shujenya can act as a battery for that particular profile. Instead, it's proven rather popular. People are deciding to take multiple Sea Witches throw in Miyakoma Rising, because it'll get you a net of 2 chi per witch on that turn, and you just bring a Water Kami to heal them up. I suppose you can use it to heal the Water Kami if it really, really comes to it. But, like I said, a little bit of a surprise dark horse for me. Like, I like the card, but I didn't think it would be people immediately jumping on and going, that's good. I thought it would be and then someone brings it to a tournament, and then someone realizes, oh wow, alright, there's something to this.
Yeah, I thought it might be enabling some particular list or some particular style with one of the Sea Witches, especially with we've just previewed Korra, and she can make some use out of this with the sharks as well, just to make sure that they can all have as many bleed tokens out as they want. And I also like that the 2 Jung cards, Jung have often been seen as like a secondary faction, like they've not been part of the main story, but their 2 cards are probably the 2 that are most involved in the main storyline we're running at the moment, which is well, like it says, Ryujin Rising from the Depths and the return of the Black Eagle to the Jwar Isles.
Yep. So, very happy with their story progression. We'll see where it goes from there. Alistair has my 1,000,000-page bullet point document. We'll see what he uses, what gets binned. And let's move on to your faction of expertise, I think, or at least from the design and playtest. I suppose all of them are, but I feel this one and Temple are generally your wheelhouse. Espionage. Play before the first turn. Choose one enemy model using the flank trait. Its owner must reveal which table edge it will enter from. And the flavor text is, the capital now has almost 100 Shadowwind ninjas. Of course, no one has seen even one. This is a reflection on Hida's mysterious death, and the Shadowwind clan deciding to put weight of numbers into the capital. This is a surprisingly good card, given I think at this Masters I was really expecting to see a lot of Hiroto and Eldest Brother appear. Obviously, coronavirus put an end to all of that, but I think with the how prolific those 2 profiles were going to be, I was expecting this card to see a lot of mileage out of that.
Yeah, mostly I wanted to. If you remember the board game Rise of the Kage, there was a lot of missions that weren't just about assassinating people. You had to steal things and do other bits and bobs. So I wanted to do some ninja stuff that wasn't about just assassination, and espionage seemed like a good thing. But what in a miniatures game, what can you find out using espionage that's valuable? So I figured, as we're going to use a lot more flank from the next faction onwards, this should be a reasonable option to take, especially for one. And maybe if there's a theme that lets you choose events, similar to how you can choose equipment in the current themes.
Is there not a ninja one for events? Or I'm not really familiar with the ninja themes other than Scouting Party, because I end up playing against it the most.
Currently they have one for equipment, but because they have so many events, it looks like a good one to look for in future. If there's going to be a thing that says choose some event cards to add, possibly up to a certain amount of rice, because they do have some ridiculous cost events in there.
Yes, I've seen that. Next up is First Strike, an enhancement. If the attached model is involved in the first melee exchange of the game, it gains unblockable 1. For that melee exchange, then discard this card. See, this one I've always thought is really, really counterable. And it's very scary if you can get that first melee exchange off, but I'm trying to think. I suppose ninjas can actually win the tactical really easily. you've got Yuta. Is it Yuta?
Utah.
Yuto. That's it. Yuta's the witches. Yuto, who's already got Tactician. You chuck a Carapan with him. Hey presto. You've got Tactician 3. No, Tactician 2. Yeah, Tactician 2. So you're rolling 3 dice. Actually, yeah, I can see the setup to get this card out, to use it. It's definitely like a Carapan, Yuto style warband. Obviously you don't need both, but at least one of the above would work quite well with this, or to enable this. You've got to watch out for like the Alpha Strike warbands on turn 1, like Prefecture with a Dog. Card not so good. Certain Ito warbands, I guess, or a lot of Ito warbands, since they get up the board so fast. I can see.
Yeah, I'd call this like a puzzle card, basically. Once your opponent sees it and knows that you're going to have to go for this, you're both going to be trying to get that first engagement on your own terms, and whether it's trying to get... I mean, you remember your opponent's got to do this through Camouflage 2 on all of your models, so you should be able to dictate this reasonably easy, even if you lose the tactical roll.
Well, true, but given that ninjas are the most popular tournament faction, I'd be surprised if people don't tech towards dealing with them. But I suppose that might just be a me thing. I always include at least one Solar/Sixth Sense model, or a dog. The dog works fine. Camo floors, definitely a lot easier to do with than Camo 2. I did have that one game where Dudico just kept running to the other side of a forest. That was infuriating. But regardless, I can see how this card works. I'm not quite sure who. And obviously, Katsumi's the go-to guy to shove it on, given that he is. But that might be a little bit of a win more. Rin might be a better. Actually, yeah, Rin would probably be a better since she's got built-in combo.
Yeah, Katsumi can also pay for unblockable, yeah. So you're just saving yourself 3 key for 2 rice. Definitely Rin being the top end of combat, or the alternative is to put it on somebody very cheap and almost use them as a fire and forget missile, and hopefully take out a key model using I say cheap, but it's a ninja, so
yep.
Using like a 15 rice ninja with 2 extra for the card.
Yes.
Unblockable still might get you a kill.
Mm-hmm. Particularly with other enhancements. Jigoku Berry. Alright. Then we move on to one of the more favoured cards in the cycle deck, Avalanche. So when the attached model is killed in a melee exchange, make a success level 2 damage roll with the weapon strength modifier. With the weapon strength modifier, one of that model's melee. Oh, so you do actually choose when your weapons. I was a little confused on this one, given that it's got a numerical one instead of a written out one. Okay, so basically you do success 2 bash on the enemy model with your stuff before your guy is killed, or before your guy is removed. For 1 rice enhancement. Any particular contenders with that? The Minamoto are not my wheelhouse, I'm afraid. I can play against them, but I don't really know them very well.
So this is one of those things where you should. It's a very good flavour card. You should never really plan to lose your model, but if you have, say, a model that needs to, that its job is going to be to remove an enemy model, and you manage to just fail, then this might just make you succeed for the loss of your model, that kind of thing. Good things for it: Yuji can have strong from a feat. Other weapon traits, if you've got the the one that does stun, but not stunning attack, obviously, or the card that does knockdown when you hit people. Those are both usable with this attack.
Okay. Are there any non-samurai it would be decent on, or?
I think you just go for most of the Ashigaru are +1 on the damage. Yoshinobu has +2, so he'd be a slightly better one. Or the other alternative is to put it on something. I think there's only the named unblessed, but if you put it on an unblessed Ashigaru of any kind, they do die quicker because they've got no armor. So again, you could sort of use it as a missile to send in at somebody. They have to kill it, and then you're going to get a success level 2 with a +1 or 2 on the damage roll.
Yeah.
Is pretty good.
That's enough to kill an orphan. Just saying.
Or indeed Master Akari, which people are saying he's almost impossible to kill.
That's a good point. That doesn't need to roll to hit. You just do it. But then again, Master Akari has to die. So it has to kill you, which is the hard part. Oops, wrong way around. Right, the mountain moves. Another one of yours. This should be an extremely popular card, given that it combos so well with Bear Stands Alone. So while no friendly models are within 3 inches of the attached model, it gains Vengeance Enemy. So you name it, it gets brutal +1 melee damage. So requirement Ashigaru, so it can only go on Ashigaru. Pick any Ashigaru with a name. You're pretty much good to go, if I'm honest.
Yeah, again, Yoshinobu's got +2 damage, so he's the one you sort of think of, but it'll also shore up the cheaper Ashigaru to make them hit a bit harder. Yeah, it's just an all-round good card to include. This is the kind of thing we wouldn't put this in a normal deck because it would probably end up being put on everything, but in a cycle deck, when the next cycle comes out, it's going to be a real choice whether you want something that's ubiquitously good like this, or maybe a niche card that'll appear in the next cycle, or maybe a theme that appears in the cycle afterwards, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah. And then if we move on to ta-da! Probably one of the cards with the biggest impact in the game, Hair by Blood. Attached model gains the Ashigaru type and the following chi feat, Inspiration. You can only apply this card to hero, and yes, this is a cycle card. You'll notice it's got the Risen Sun cycle logo on the top left. The card comes with the hero resculpt. So it's Siring Son of Hida. Hero is beloved by soldiers, priests, and peasants. His claim as daimyo cannot easily be set aside. So the big thing is he gains the Ashigaru type. And in Prefecture, being an Ashigaru, that gives you a lot in Prefecture for 1 rice. So, he suddenly benefits from things like Move It. I think what else? He can go in the Claws of the Dragon theme, which is the big one. But as I said, there's a lot of internal Ashigaru synergy going on in Prefecture, and giving one of the best samurai in the game that extra level of synergy makes him a very, very scary model to see across the table with this. The downside to it is, since he is expensive, you're making him that little bit more expensive, you might not be able to squeeze in all the Ashigaru you like. But oh no, I'm sure we're all heartbroken with that.
Yeah, I have to agree. The hero, I still say, is the best melee combat model in the game for his rice. And 1 extra rice doesn't affect him all that much, but the Ashigaru type really does. I think my favourite is Hiryu, who can now come and help him out when he gets engaged by somebody else to make them suddenly outnumbered. And Hiryu can also put his feet on Hero to give hero coordinated attack. So hero would go up to 5 dice, and your opponent would lose 1 for being outnumbered just by having you near hero. I mean, we've already seen that's a huge swing for an Ashigaru. For a huge cost samurai with critical 0 and both unblockable and feint, it's a very big thing. You just have to. You almost can't engage him at that point.
Yep, let's give him Vanguard too. Yay! It's not going to end badly for anyone, honest. But, hero good, card makes him better. That's all Prefecture players really need to know about this one. Hair by Deed. Attached model gains Banzai. Friendly samurai models gain charging bonus Fearless when they begin their activation with line of sight. This attached model requirement Hagane. So Banzai and Hagane is actually very good. She is expensive for a Prefecture samurai, but she brings something very unique in that she's one of the only models with combo strike that costs nothing, I believe, on her in Prefecture. And giving her Banzai makes her a very, very aggressive model. Like, she definitely wants to be up in your face, attempting to ruin your day. She's one of my favorites. She's still on my painting table, though, given that I've suddenly picked up all the Savage Wave stuff. But we'll get to those in a moment.
Yeah, the new model's fantastic. She already has the charging bonus Fearless as well, so she wants to get to use that. Gaining Banzai obviously just means that she's always going to have that little extra damage, which she doesn't have powerful attack, and she's only +1 usually, so the +2 from the charge attack's really good. And obviously there's the extra movement that she gets out of it. And just because she's doing that, everybody will have LOS to her, so they'll also get the Fearless.
Yep, she's definitely a lead from the front type model, and she's very difficult to take down through melee because she's got Indomitable, built-in prowess, parry. She's definitely I didn't really realize how scary she was till I played in the tournament in Rotterdam, and that was saying like, oh right, I can't send. I'm gonna have to send some crappy little Yarrymen into this, but I really don't expect them to come out the other side. So that was a big eye-opener, and this, of course, makes her slightly scarier. The Fearless for Samurai isn't such a huge deal, but when you do fail a fear test on a Samurai-based warband, that hurts so much. So it also means they get to do things like charge models with dread like a Curio or the Wraith. So
yeah, I think that's the big thing for me is just those couple of models that might, even if they just have Terror and Fear 6, say that's not something you're likely to pass, and when you're trying to do it with an 18 to 22 Rice model, you just don't want to take that risk. So yeah, that's where you just charge in and get the Fearless instead.
Yeah. Then we have everyone's clear favourite, the intensive training drill, attached model against following chief feat military training, the infamous Prefecture's pass token stratagem. This gives you more access to yet more pass tokens. I'm sure non-Prefecture players are all overjoyed at this development.
It might be worth telling people, actually. I think I put this in, and I think you questioned whether they needed more pass tokens, and I think we all agreed that this was the last bit of the pass token puzzle. Like, they now have enough. We don't ever need to give Prefecture any more ways to generate pass tokens.
Well, yes, this was with my warband that could generate 7 a turn. No, it could generate 9 a turn? Yes, the Hairclown one can do 9 pass tokens a turn, but one model will do literally nothing. So it was a bit sort of, okay, do they need more? But this, as you said, this is the last pass tokeny stuff we're willing to give you guys. And in the mirror match, you just take Mako and you're sorted. Mako. It's 2 rice, so it is an expensive enhancement, especially on Ashigaru. If you are going to take it, I'm trying to think who you'd give it on, because nearly all the expensive Ashigaru want to use their chi for other stuff. But if you really want to go into the deep end with pass tokens, this card is available for you. I'm a little gutted it's only max 1 though. But, oh well. I guess, what's her face? Ima. Ima would be good with it. She doesn't do anything with her chi.
Ima or is it Fujitaka, the banner bearer? He only has rally, so I mean he can boost obviously, but
does he have channel?
I thought the conch had channel.
Dun dun dun! Quickly to the wiki so we can consult this. Fujitaka. Click. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, he's banner guy is channel. Conch guy is order and command, I believe.
Other way around then. The conch guy could have this because if you just don't need it, he can at least generate you some pass tokens, and sometimes you don't need the what he's bringing.
What, more activations? Never, Jason. Shut your face. And finally, Kusanagi. It's extremely expensive. Give it that. But it does make your samurai incredibly scary with this weapon. You're looking at a +5 damage modifier. At that point, you probably don't need crit strike. If you've got any form of feint.
Yeah, I think powerful attack's the secondary prefecture attack. Hero has it, and a couple of the others have it, and it is like if you actually want a model dead, you don't crit, you feint, unblockable, and power attack. And this, I originally just wrote this as a +4 or +5 damage weapon, and I thought that would be really cool. And then I remember that the hack feat exists, and that would have been slightly over the top, so it ended up being +2 with powerful attack 0 to make it 5 in total. But I wanted it to be as straightforward as possible. No fancy messing about. No Rube Goldberg machines. Just I'm going to hit you for +5.
I love the Rube Goldberg machine. Well, but like I said, it's very simple. It's expensive, but I do not fancy getting hit by the +5. Minato is bad enough with his +4, and same with Katsumi, but they are out of faction.
This is a little narrative thing that you get to play with yourself as well.
Yep.
As the flavor text says, before he died, he'd sent his sword out to go to somebody who is given it as a great honor, possibly lots of his blessing to lead the clan when he's gone. You can decide who that goes to.
Dun dun dun.
And I was going to try and think of some models that could use this, but literally anybody you put it on is happy.
Yes, and for 4 rice, yeah. It definitely has the capability to put out results relative to its rice. And then this, I think, is probably, I would say, like the best card in the cycle, which is Endless Numbers, which is attached card gains the Horde type. It costs essentially 3 per model you've already bought from that card. So if you play this to the Rincho, if you've only bought 1 Rincho, the card only costs 3. It only applies to that 1 Rincho. So that 1 Rincho has Horde, and you can keep summoning that 1 guy back, but you can only ever have that 1 guy. I hope that clarifies it for some people. So you can't apply it to unique or cavalry type Bakemono. But so currently it works on Rincho and the Boomers, I believe, are the only eligible Bakemono for it.
Yeah, I think everybody else is unique.
Yep, already Horde type. So I think it's very good on either of those. I think it's much better on the boomers than the Rincho myself, because the Rincho is a very, no, yes, brutes as well, but does anyone really use those, Florian? Do they? I actually quite like the brutes, but I'm too busy with regular Bakemono at the moment. So I think the Rincho is a very durable profile to start with, and I think it allows you to do some really weird stuff with the boomers. Like you just send them forward, fire one shot, charge into melee with something, get them killed, summon a fully reloaded boomer back into play, sorted. So I think this is an incredibly powerful card. I think it will only probably get more. I'm going to say more powerful, but that's not really accurate. It's going to get wider utility over time as we introduce more and more possible Bakemono.
Yeah, we're already working on what we can possibly put in the next cycle that would entice people away from this. So
yes,
I think this is going to be around for a while, and the next cycle is definitely going to have something, not just something interesting for Savage Wave, but something interesting for Bakemono if it's going to hope to compete with this card.
yeah, I know. My personal opinion is that we've probably peaked with Bakemono development with what we've got and what's coming up, and we may be looking at Oni and Oni show after that. But speaking of Oni and Oni show, ta-da! A theme just for them. Wrath of the Red Sun. So whenever a friendly Oni or Oni show deals damage, you put a counter on the card. Whenever they kill a model, they put 2 counters on the card. So kill a model melee. There's all melee, no shooting, no using Boba or Bobata to smite stuff from a distance. This is upfront and personal. So you're adding counters to the card. Whenever one of your Oni or Oni show die, you remove counters from this card. Oh, killed in melee. That's actually quite an important stipulation. You remove all counters from this card in the end phase, but so you're building up damage modifiers essentially. So let's see, you want to be adding counters. You want to use them all before the end phase, so you build them up early. So essentially, you're looking for Goro and people with combo strike. Would be
so. The way I see it, the two things to build up your number of counters are going to be either somebody with combo like Goro, although he is actually good to use when he's got a few counters on this as well.
I'd say,
or just take some of the Oni that just plain don't need it. I mean, if you've got Rashka, he doesn't need the extra modifiers. He's +4 and strong. He gets a 12 whenever he rolls. That's just how he does it. So he doesn't need this. If you activate him twice first to get 2 counters, maybe do Goro after that, so he's at +2. And he can combo and maybe get another 2 counters. And then at that point, all of your small and medium based Oni show that aren't that strong in combat are at +4 on whatever they already have. And if it goes to plan, they will be very much above their rise cost for the ability that they have in melee.
especially if you're chucking around some Unearthly Rage, because that card is scary. As Chris Hales demonstrated in that one Masters.
Yeah.
Caught an awful lot of people with their pants down on that one. So unblockable to the end phase.
Yeah, reducing people to 1 dice and having unblockable, it turns out, is quite good.
Yep. Who'd have thunk it? Oh yeah, so when does she on Yomi? How does that work with her? She's got... Okay, all her specials cost 1. Yeah, well, I think she's an interesting profile to figure out, but that's a future puzzle. Onwards. So, onto Silver Moon, everyone's favorite control meta. Food Monopoly. During the starting phase, choose an enemy model. That model gains slow and weak until the end phase. So this is after tsunami. After tsunami, the farms and livestock of the Jua Isles were decimated. So the people with the money have bought up all the food and are distributing it as they choose. The game effect of that is you're going to make someone slow and weak for a turn. This is particularly good against anyone who has combo strike. It's really good against most Ito. Nothing is more embarrassing than seeing a weak and slow Itsunagi. And it's generally a very good event card. I don't quite know how it compares to the other Silver Moon cards off the top of my head, because they've got a lot more direct control, but it's a soft control. You can't have all the direct control cards, I don't think. So, one to consider?
Yeah, it's all the things you've said as direct control often have a counter to them, and there's not much counter to being made slow and weak. It's going to do that regardless, and it might not be as big a benefit as something like putting a control marker or removing activation counters or whatever it is, but it's very reliable for what it does. It also doesn't have any kind of range or restriction on who you can do it on at all, which is why it's 2 rice. If this was something like use it on a model within 3 inches, it'd have probably been 1 rice.
Yeah, so
it's good for VIMs as well. Last turn of the game, you work out who the enemy's VIM is, make them slow, and they can't get to your deployment.
Mm-hmm. Let's go. Okay, in the hands of the Kami. Before dice are rolled for any test by a friendly model, guess the final result of your roll. If you're correct, add 1 Chi token to friendly model. It costs 0. There's pretty much no reason not to take it. For those of you who need some quick math, the average on 3 dice, the result is a 7. The average on 4 dice, I think, is 8. Then you pretty much look at 8 after that. But if you were more than 4 dice, your opponent's in worse news than you getting 1 G. And it's got some of the text from one of Alistair's story things, or background lore setting fluff. I'm not sure what the correct term for it is. So I don't know what the average on 2 dice would be. I guess 4.5. I wouldn't guess if you're rolling 2 dice. I'd say 3 dice plus.
Yeah, I was going to say 2 dice has a huge variance in this. It's almost completely random, whereas the other ones at least tend towards the mean quite a lot once you get to 3-4 dice.
Yep.
This was an experiment as well, because of the way the cycle cards are going to work, where you can only have 1 cycle deck. I thought it'd be interesting to have a 0 cost card, so the only cost to this card is the opportunity cost not to take another cycle deck. Really, it should probably have gone not in the first cycle deck, but I just decided it was going to be such a minor effect, and it was kind of a cool mini game that it's fine to go in.
Yep, I would like to explore more of the gambling mechanic for Silver Moon. Unfortunately, not my faction. We have a local player up here, but he tends to skew in very strange directions, to say the least. And next, the infamous Animal Trap. So, has the usual trap things. Play when any model without Clyde Walker Intangible declares any action which involves a move. This time makes a chi test. If unsuccessful, it gains unstable till the end phase. Its action is considered resolved. So basically, it doesn't move, gains unstable. Warbands warbands with at least 1 peasant hunter model. And this is infamous because
there is no peasant hunter model.
Yes.
So
Damn
obviously,
virus.
Yeah, I mean, Virus and other bits and bobs. It should have come out halfway through this year, I think, and it might well be into next year now, which is a real shame, being as the cycle cards are designed around a yearly release. But unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. It's down as Peasant Hunter as well. We still, seeing as we've got more time, we're still having the debate about whether this should be allowed in Bastions of the Mountain, because they already have 2 traps and they already have snare, and we don't want it to just be a complete negative experience for their opponent where they never get to move a model. So this might be either a themeless or a running theme, or possibly a new theme card, rather than one that gives you free traps as well as access to 6 events and a snare guy who can snare for 1 key because he's got a believer.
Yep, the joys. And I'm just painting up Trapeng right now. Well, not like right now, but he's on the painting table. So, yes, everyone... I mean, the counter to all this, of course, you play Tengu, just fly over all that stuff. All your trap cards were for nothing. But that's a little bit meta. And next is Plenty of Fish. Nice, easy, small, readily available 1 rice upgrade. Attach mulligan Scout 02 for rice farmers.
This was almost entirely fluff driven. There were actually more sort of fallout of the tsunami cards, but this one made it through because it's so simple and it has an effect that you might happen to want.
Yep.
In the temple lists, fishermen gain scout. Fishermen have scout. Rice farmers don't. And the idea here is that somebody's rice field has been washed away, so he's going to have to go and fish. So he gains scout. Really simple. You can have 3 of them, so 3 of your rice farmers can scout with the fisherman. A little bit of an advantage setup, which also the other good thing about it is with Bastions of the Mountain list especially, sometimes you just fill up your entire deployment zone and you can't fit everything in. But having an extra 3 models that can scout is good.
I've yet to see that, but I didn't play against the younger... Is it Hawking or Hulking? I can never tell because they write their L's the same as they write their C's on their forms. I get in trouble every year for it.
Yeah, but he was running a lot of Kami anyway, so he didn't have the double bull and Ashtaka Tanaga. And also now they can have Koji's pack, so it's like 3 1 rice models, 2 50 mil, a 40 mil, and then maybe up to 7 peasants as well. And
that's why we had to expand the size of the corner edge deployment zone to 8 inches each.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple that still have the option to use the corner square deployment, and that's easy to fill if you're playing.
Well, I'll put a pin in that one and wait till I see it, and wonder how on earth I'm going to do with that. Next up is Blessing of Kanon. So essentially, it's a one-off ancestral armor thing where individual dice rolls damage roll the same. Target number is ignored. Sorry, the number is ignored. Sorry, the damage roll is entirely ignored. So that essentially stops crit strikes. Very good for factions without clan armor. I wonder if you would take it in Minamoto for 1. I don't know if that's sort of skewing further into tankiness than you need to go, but it is a generically useful one.
Yeah, so anybody who's not familiar with 2d6 probabilities, the chance of rolling the same number is 1 in 6, so you will ignore on that turn 1 out of every 6 damage rolls. But it doesn't matter if they roll a double 1 or a double 6. Double 1 you probably weren't bothered about anyway. So
the actual it's the whole turn. Yes, that's actually quite big.
Yeah, so the and it's not just enemy as well; it's everybody.
Yeah. Okay, right. This
Few things to keep in mind is that if you have strong or weak, you are more likely to get a double.
yep, that goes
So
up to
if you
about
don't have either,
20%.
yeah, if you don't have either of those, this is a slightly better card. And yeah, it's again, it's a bit more flavour. The canon is the Kami of Mercy, also known as the Lady Who Regards All, and she doesn't like it when people kill each other, so she's having a direct effect on this battle. This is
I was about to say, this would probably go really well in my Bakemono horde, given that Bakemono die in droves generally. Um, and you've done some excellent work to help shore that up. Wei Shu is a star in that regard, and so is Ig. But this is definitely one I'm going to have to stick in the back pocket for a bit and see how that works out.
I've mentioned it before as well. This card is also my secret shame. There is a horrendous combo with this, which isn't overpowered or anything. It's just it should not be, and I'm waiting for somebody to discover it. And there's a special prize for anybody.
Now you've got me intrigued, Jason. I'm going to sit here with all my cards and the rulebook till I find it. That's got to be damage. I'll work it out later. Doesn't matter for now. We're streaming. Alright. Next up, Celebration of Life. Played in the starting phase. All soulless models gain insignificant until the end phase. So clearly the anti-death and decay card of choice.
Yeah, Death and Decay was a bit of a problem last edition as well. This card was actually cut from the running deck this edition, and I think it's better off in the cycle deck because again, there's going to be some meaningful choices to make. So if we put in things like this, which this is what I would call a silver bullet, this is obviously designed to beat that list. It does other things, there's plenty of other soulless models out there. There's a ninja thing where Ghost can get to the if you play a circle scenario, he can get to the enemy side and start praying, and if you can just stop him for one turn, that can make a big difference. But those kinds of cards are going to go in the cycle decks because then you have to choose which one you're going to use.
Yep. So I'm trying to think outside of Death and Decay. I mean, obviously it affects Cult the most because they have by far the most soulless models, just through sheer number of Kami and the like, even though most of the Kami are insignificant anyway. No, definitely more of a Death and Decay thing, but it's not. It's for a turn, so Death and Decay might not actually care too much about it, other than they can't do snare actions for a turn. They'll still get the slow shambling hordes across the table.
Yeah, so it might take them an extra turn to sort of overwhelm a decent combat model like an ordinary three melee dice model. Once they start putting extra models into the combat to outnumber, they quickly go down. If they're all insignificant, then that's going to take another turn. If you're already winning, they can't turn idols back on a 3 idol scenario, which can be also an important thing to look at. So you could just spend all your activations making sure you're in the lead, and they can't, unless they want to send Kato to do it, and that's fine, I think.
Yep. I'm all good with Kato coming in. Be subjective turning. Alright, then we're on to Gunbate, which is after the dice roll to see if the game will end, you may discard this card to reroll the dice. This, I think, is quite important for slower warbands, or warbands that want to win on turns 4, 5, or 6. So you're looking at sort of Death and Decay style ones, or warbands that the power spike is, the power peak, is definitely like late game. So an uninhibited Bakemono horde would love it. Or I suppose it gives you a very good comeback mechanic as well. So, oh no, I don't want the game to end on turn 5. but the number of scenarios it applies to is quite small, I think.
Yeah, this also might come more into play as we do alternate tournament formats, and also sort of less competitive, more narrative-driven play where there might be more random game lengths. But yeah, basically, if you roll the dice and you're going to lose on this turn, then you got one dice, you can re-roll it. Usually, I think you can work out if you will win or not at the end of the given turn. So if your opponent's in a much better position, you would re-roll the dice. If you're in a much better position, then you can let the game.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Magatama. An equipment. When attached while uses a target chi feat with a range value, you may spend one additional chi to extend its range of feat by 2. First Q&A about this is whether that applies to base to base. The answer is no, because the range is base to base. It's not a number. Or at least that's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, it needs a numerical value to be increased.
Yep. So I already see many applications with this, but my personal preference on like my Ito warbands is Chisai or offensive chi feat heavy. So having a card which allows me to stand a little bit further back is always good.
Yeah, Utah also like this. Basically, this is.
Don't say that, Jason. Don't say that.
This is for it's quite a small number of models, but there are a few models where the main limitation on them is that you have to get in close to use the feats that they have, and this will help you a little bit if that's what you're relying on.
Right. And I would say this card and Endless Numbers are the premier cards of this cycle. Good old good new pacifism, which it changes the way people are building their warbands and how they're planning to play out the game. So it's an enhancement. If this model is in play at the end of the turn, gain 1 scenario point. You discard this card as soon as this model declares a ranged attack or snare action or participates in a melee exchange or makes an opposed chi test. You must put it on the highest rice cost in your warband. So this affects warband construction quite significantly. My own experience with this card is you can expect to get 1 star point from turn 1, easy peasy. You can quite easily get turn 2 depending on what profile you've put the card on, or how willing you are to hold them back from the fight. Any more than that is very much a toss-up. I wanted to make a Naigubu Tengu warband which had pacifism in it, but I ended up having Savage Wave instead. Have you made any warbands to utilize this card yet, Jason?
I was more surprised that people were building around this. I put this in on my Minamoto Finest Steel, and I just put it on Yuji, who is going to get in melee, but I knew that it would take him 2 turns to get there, so it would put me 2 scenario points up, and I thought that's what most people would do. I think there's a lot of people talking about either you have to take this or you have to have a plan to remove it at least in turn 2. And yeah, it's very possible that for the scenarios, bearing in mind that like the other 3 types of scenarios, this won't do anything.
Yep.
That might well be true, but the idea with it being just 1 scenario point and you're only going to use it for turn 1 and 2 was that you should still be able to catch up and win. If it's a 2, 4, 6, for example, you should be able to win the 4 and the 6 points, even if they have this. But I think there's possibly something with Ikusa, because he's you'd have to not use contemplation, which is a huge downside. But
yeah, I figured out how to do it with Naigubu because Naigubu doesn't have any. He's got no ranged attacks. He generally can't get to a scenario objective because you have to shuffle him along. And you could sort of do it if you've got an air kami pushing him along and giving him extra movement as well. But and he's got no opposed chi feats. And being Tengu, getting into melee with him is difficult. That was my plan with the pacifism, but as I said, my experience with it is expect turns 1 and 2. Any more than that, you've got off real lucky there, or your model is literally doing nothing. And you don't want to stick this on like an Ito Shisai and have her stand at the back the whole game.
Yeah, I think the difference with Naigubu is that he's only 15 rice, so
Yes.
you're limited to 14 rice for everybody else. Ikusa is possibly a problem with this because he's 22, and you can happily not use Contemplate Existence, and he's got plenty of other things to do every turn. So maybe he's the best option for it. I don't know. Other people will definitely come up with things now and let us know. But
I've found the easiest way to knock it off is through the opposed chi test, by far.
yeah, definitely.
But that is sort of faction specific, like prefecture, opposed chi tests.
Yeah, I think Prefecture easy to remove it with a dog.
Yes. Well, yeah, yes. I can't comment on the dog missile.
Similar to Temple, actually. It's if you want to get rid of this thing and you didn't bring it yourself, then Master Ikari can probably get there on turn 1, just do a quick melee exchange and end up back in your deployment zone before anybody.
Well, moving on to temple-related stuff, even though it's a Ronin card, it's the Prayer Scroll. Attach model gains immune spirit block. Could this be some foreshadowing, perhaps, Jason? And when recruited into a Temple of Rokan warband, this card gains multiple 3.
Yeah, like you say, the flavor text hints at something to come. It's these things that give that immune are obviously again silver bullets if you're struggling with a spirit block model in particular, then it's available. You can counter that. Interesting that it's the Temple one for game 3 because I think currently the most troublesome spirit block model might be Master Enos. So it's funny that they also get the best counter to him. But if you've got a model that you're going to send into Master Enos specifically to deal with that and not having put 3 spirit block markers on every model you have, then this is one good counter to it. 2 rice is actually quite a lot, but what we found was that models with spirit block, that's the thing that they do. So effectively countering an enemy model is more than a 1 rice card.
Mm-hmm. Trying to think who else has spirit block. Isn't it Waku for Cult? I know Cult has softer access to spirit block. Let's say Waku. Let's go.
Yeah, they do have a few in Cult. I think there might be another one coming up as
Waku, Soul Collector, blah 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 blah. Weapons. G block, yes, so he hands it out. Well, it's there. I just need to get all the stream windows back up. Every time I tab out to go look at something, it's a bit of a disaster. Right, Sun Goddess Shrine. There's been a lot of chat recently about this, given how much people talk about Yatsumata. Soulless models may not move or be placed within 2 inches of this terrain feature. It is impossible blocking, large, and destructible. So you can't take it in Cult or Savage Wave because, well, they're the bad guys, and the Sun Goddess does not appreciate them. It is a big counter to things like Orphan Heavy lists when they want to summon all their Kami, or creates a safe zone against models like Yatsumata and the Wraith, but at the same time, it's still destructible.
Yeah, so I really like the destructible thing for terrain. It was on one piece of terrain last edition, and I basically put it on all terrain that you buy because it means that we can make the terrain much more powerful because there's a simple counter to it. Just get rid of it. This one, again, we've put it in the same set as the Celebration of Life, so that if you want the silver bullet that helps with, because this would help with Death and Decay as well.
Oh yeah.
Then you have to use this cycle deck. The next one won't have anything to do with the same silver bullet, so you can't choose multiple ones to put in your list. Again, it's linked. The fluff is linked to the tsunami. People erect these shrines after a disaster to try and stop the next one happening, basically.
Yep. Symbol of hope. Trying to think of any. I think it's already been quite extensively discussed in Robot Dice Explosion. So we will move on. War Weary. In the first turn of the game, models receive only one activation counter instead of two. This is quite big. This is a reverse of our let's nerf Death and Decay into the ground. This flips it on its head and makes Death and Decay really good once again.
This wasn't designed to go with Death and Decay, but yes, it really does, especially if they use the Desiccated Grave. It's also good with Silver Moon, though.
Yep, Silver Moon Drunken Sake combines very well.
And with the Three Brothers, or indeed both, Silver Moon and the Three Brothers.
Yep. So it is expensive, but it does neuter a lot of first turn plays. Like the turn 1 Dog Bullet doesn't function with this. You simply won't get up the board far enough. On the other hand, your turn 2 will have plenty of chi. It's much better against some warbands than others, so like Tengu and Ito will still get up the table very quickly. But other warbands, the normal speed warbands, will all suffer from that. And the slow warbands probably benefit the most. So there's like a middle section of the factions where it really hurts them.
Yeah, it's also it's very good for factions that can generate a lot of extra activation counters. As if you take multiple models with vitality or something like that, then losing one when you're going to do 4 activations is not as bad as losing one when you've only got 2.
Yep. Wolfheart Talisman. Attach model gains bravery for its first fear test of the game, then discard this card. And this has other important flavor text. To ensure the fealty of the Tanaka family, the Takashi have offered to foster the Wolf Clan heir. The boy vanished with his uncle Tanaka Kazuo on the road from Sumaga to Edo. So that's the Wolf Clan. Well, I'm sure people have seen Kazuo and the Wolf Cub kicking around. And that is a scary profile. I've had a lot of private messages on Discord about how do I deal with this? Now my answer is chief eats or shoot it. Fighting in melee, not so great.
Yeah, I've had the same. In fact, Hart was telling me just yesterday. The big downside to him is that he's a lot of rice in one model, and you should always have something to deal with the big 25 rice models, because if you don't, they will kill all of yours. This was a slightly disappointing card. It's a bit of a shame. It probably should have been 1 rice, but it's too good in certain factions that are bad against fear at 1 rice. So because it was a Ronin card, it had to be bumped up a rice, and at 2 rice, almost nobody uses it, which is a shame.
I'm trying to think who's the best sort of faction that would benefit from this. Prefecture is definitely not. I mean, they've got bravery and spades and leadership, and anti-fear is. Prefecture are very good at countering fear.
I've seen people want it for Ito Samurai because they're the only samurai that don't get bravery.
Yes. Masanagi would definitely love this. Because nothing makes someone sadder than it's Masanagi about to go in with Itsanagi's gambit, then fail the fear test.
Yeah, and it's things like that. There are a few decent high cost models, like over 15 rice, that don't come with bravery, and it's a very niche use for it because it's just the first one, which you might have passed anyway. But yeah, it's 2 rice cost means it's even more niche for who would actually want this, but it's got a place.
Yeah, and finally, I think it's finally, yes, it won't let me go past this picture. Year of the Risen Sun. Play on turn 1. All models gain +1 G token. For 1, I will say, given my Bakamano Horde, this card is amazing.
Yeah, so it's all models, so your opponent gets them as well.
Yeah, but I've got the Bakamano Horde, you know.
Yeah, obviously it favours a larger warband or people who can channel or have a communal card. And it also favours people who just use more key tokens. So if you've got a lot of animals or something like that, or Kami, this isn't going to do as much for you.
Well, I have found I was about to say something about that, and it totally vanished from my mind. God damn it. Oh yes, it accelerates your power spike for most warbands. Like Ito Kinu generally has to wait a turn before she can fire out the poison plague of death. So suddenly she can do that on turn 1 quite easily with the other Risen Sun. So you see a lot of like the chi-based models suddenly accelerate a lot quicker, or the game will go a lot faster with them all of a sudden.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the feat-based models either. Like most samurai are 2 key, but they boost their melee for 3. So if you want to get an early, if there is an early melee, you want to boost, you can do that with this on turn 1.
Yep.
Also, certain feats like unblockable are 3. So if you've got Hero or Katsumi, and you think you can get a turn 1 melee with them, then being able to
upgraded Hero can definitely get there, guys. Just throw it out there. Turn 1, move it. Vanguard deployment. All you need. So yes, that's everything in Year of the Risen Sun. Sorry, the Risen Sun cycle.
Yeah, so there are there were planned to be more cards added through the year, and I don't know if they're going to end up in Year of the Risen Sun or if they'll end up in next year's one now. We'll just have to keep people updated as we find out. But as happened with Hero and Hanage, as we do models through the year that might require something extra, or if we want to do something with the story, those cards will be released as a cycle card. And hopefully it makes sense that those are then not going to have to suffer from us continually adding more and more to the game. We're now just giving more options than layering abilities on top of each other. We don't have to worry about how they interact with other cycle cards.
Yep, and finally we've got the 2 Jung profiles you previewed elsewhere on the Facebook group, I believe. There's Hitokuchi, who is the big great white shark man, complete with really big oversized hook in his face, I will add. And he is Ryota Mark II.
Yeah, so I kind of explained this. The last edition, Ryota was a great white. I never really liked it because he was smaller than the Hammerhead. He's only on a 30mm base. And when we did the starter set, it turned out that he was one of the best models for it. We have to take a lot into account, like how many pieces the models come in, how big is the model, all that kind of thing. But the profile was just absolutely not useful for a starter set at all. So this is Ryota's old profile, and he's going to come out with a new model. Ryota's going to stay as he is in the starter set.
He gets bigger. And I'm just saying, Queen of the Waves, bigger base is better.
Yeah, one of the things is I said was if he's going to be a great white, he needs to be bigger than the other sharks. He's on a large base. It does mean he gets shot as well, but that's not a problem in Jung.
Yeah, I do like that you took the time to explain Garbage Eater to to someone the other day.
Yeah, if you're not on the Discord channel, that's the sharks all have the ability that when they cause wounds to a non-soulless model during a melee exchange, they heal a wound because they eat the enemy. The Ryota is a tiger shark, and his one doesn't say non-soulless because when I was doing research on sharks, it turns out literally anything that they can fit in their mouth, they will eat just in case it's food. And I think some of the more surprising things were they eat a lot of marine research equipment, car license plates. I don't know how they found a car to bite into, but there's definitely a car license plate inside a shark. And yeah, this seems to be just a tiger shark thing. So
Yep.
it's one of those things where we wouldn't usually change the rule because people will read it and assume they're all the same. But I thought it was interesting enough to have a different rule.
It's funny enough. We move on to everyone's. I think she's the big winner for a lot of the Jung players. Because this is Miyakomo Korra, the old revamped version of Asami, who looks distinctly more waterlogged, but she's got cleansing once again. But the most important part is she has blood in the water, which is 2 chi active, target 6, opposed chi feats once a turn, but target model gains a bleed marker. She is a shark enabler for the Jung players, which is something they've been chomping at the bit for.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I'd like to go through with this. I was going to put this up in an article, but it ended up just going on Facebook, so I haven't. The first one is if you look at Blood in the Water and compare it to Chaos Bolt, for example, this is the reason why you can't compare things between factions. Chaos Bolt is basically the same, but it gives you 3 separate markers that all do a damage. So it does triple the damage, and you think, well, that's why is it so much better? But in this faction, the thing you want is the bleed marker. And the fact that it's active means that you can't just compare the cost and the damage it does. Having the bleed marker on, if that bleed marker didn't do damage, if we could have such a thing as a bleed 0, that would still be worth this feat.
Yep, good old Fog of Hesitation. That's always a very powerful chi feat because it's just choose an enemy model in the pulse. It's not target, it's just you point at them, do an opposed chi test. Hey presto, that person is doing nothing until the very last thing.
Yeah, there's obviously lots of uses for that, and it's a great thing for Jung to be able to have. And again, when you've got models that require setup, like even if it's just putting a bleed marker on, or if it's some other setup that they need, like just reducing the dice on a model, then making sure that they can't interfere with your plans by choosing a model that's got to go last, always helpful.
Yep. I'm trying to think how she compares to Asami, but they are different. They fulfill different roles. Asami is a scenario controller, whereas Korra is she's mainly a shark enabler, is her obvious application. Because Asami can shoot people without line of sight, which is amazing. But Fog of Hesitation, you can keep those sharks safe. You can say, you've got a bleed, that guy will not come in and counterattack your aggressive shark. And all her 2 important chi feats are actives, so I can see why people are taking Miyakomo Rising with her. Because if she can get 4 chi on turn 1, she's got 8 chi max. So, and she's expensive. She is 17. I can't remember how much Asami is off the top of my head, but I remember Asami is ridiculously cheap. because everybody during playtest kept complaining about her being too expensive, so she got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Whenever I use her, everyone complains that she's too cheap. So it's your own feedback, people. 14 against 17. So
Yeah, she did go down a lot. It kept ruining my maths because she was in the starter set again, and they have to add up to 70, obviously.
yeah, but no, I mean, like Asami has some really, really hard counters, like really hard counters to her, whereas Korra seems to just be all round quite functional. I mean, you're mainly using her for bleed. I don't know if I would take all 3 sharks with her. I'm experimenting with a 2 shark list at the moment, but given our current environment, I don't have a live opponent to test it against. So
Yeah, I think the best combo is probably Arata because he's impetuous. It's difficult. You have to put multiple bleeds on before and have them last over 2 turns. But now you can just say, "Oh right, well I'm activating him because he's impetuous, but she's got an active feat and she's going to put a bleed marker on." Miyakoma Rising comes into it well because she's got willpower 1 and she's 2 with willpower 1, which is fine, but you can fail that. And Miyakoma Rising does just let you say, you know what, I'm just going to take the 2 damage and I'll just do the feat twice. It failed the first time. Oh no, it's once per turn now. Oh,
yeah.
we stopped that.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's only once per turn.
I remember doing that now, but last time I played it, it wasn't once per turn.
Yeah, but if you want to, basically, so Blood in the Water is your aggressive enabler, and Fog of Hesitation is I'm trying to think of how I can put this into words. It's a concept I know. It's use that to protect your shark. So your shark's gonna go in and if you attack a shark, a Sami Miman, they're generally in trouble because they're all aggressive. And Fog of Hesitation means that counterattack model will most likely be standing around twiddling their thumbs, watching as your shark butchers whatever other target it's chomping on. So she is a very, very powerful enabler. I look forward to seeing what sort of warbands the other young players are going to put together. I'm still
Yeah,
my Kancho one.
it's not necessarily just about the sharks as well. Fog of Hesitation can enable any model really. You can use it to prevent your opponent ruining your setup for whatever tactics you're currently doing.
Yeah.
Last edition as well, this model had seduction, and that's going to be a general change. Like seduction's a great ability, but I'd rather write a character that has abilities based on what they bring to the faction, rather than we've got a female model, so we'll give it seduction. And the same thing happened with Lady Oka.
Yes, I was about to say your Oka. I'm going to say rant. It's not quite a rant though.
Yeah, so I think both characters came out a lot better. Even though the feat is an absolutely fine feat, the character as a whole becomes a different character when you don't when you reserve that for the roses, basically the people who.
Yes, and she has cleansing, which I think is criminally underrated for most people.
We get a lot of people saying things like, "I don't know how to deal with Ito. They put out a lot of poison," or if Kato puts 6 control markers on me, haven't I just lost? Well, cleansing is the answer to a lot of these things.
Yep.
You don't often see a lot of multiple stacks of fire, but being able to remove stacks of tokens from multiple models as well. Again, another use for Miyakoma Rising.
Yep.
It's a bit maybe superfluous, both of them having it, but I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah, well, in theory, it should be quite rare to see both because that's 31 rice, 33 if you're taking Miyakoma Rising, and that's just support. And these models, if they're basically support, one's enabler, one's like a scenario pusher, quite literally, and neither of them directly affect the enemy models. Like, so you're doing a range attacks, but they're doing no damage. You're just moving stuff around. If they're melee, something has gone horribly wrong, or you're truly desperate. So spending a full third of your wand doing that is a little bit scary. But I think someone's already posted a warband that uses both of them and Miyakoma Rising. I'll be very interested to see how that one works out. My Queen of the Waves double shark one has been okay, but I suffer from lack of models to do snare actions, so I'll be very interested to see how double witch plus whatever other support works out. So, but everyone's got a different playstyle. It's one of the things I would have loved to have seen at this current Masters. Just what the initial wave of everybody's initial this year's warbands were going to be.
Yeah, it's always a good test to see how the game is doing as a whole, and the 6 or 7 different metas all joined together, and we get to see what's been working in different places and then how it interacts with.
Yeah, I didn't get to do my whirlwind tour of Europe this year either.
Yeah, I was hoping to get to at least a couple of those as well. So
yeah,
hopefully next.
Yeah. But yes, hopefully next year. And they were all good fun. They're all very educational. You got to see a lot of different ideas. Some flat out crazy ideas, I will admit, were out there. Remember, I saw a 5-model prefecture warband which just stacked order upon orders. And that was a bit of a what? But much to my surprise, it still works.
That's a similar one to the one it came second in the first Grand Masters. I was playing it in the final. I think he had 6 models in prefecture. So he started with some pass tokens, and he was the guy who taught me how to play pass tokens, basically. He was generating extra ones, and his idea was to spend pass tokens and then have about 4 activations left so he could go in and get scenario and do exactly what he wanted while you were all exhausted. But this was before themes existed.
Yes. It was sort of before a lot of... I think the first special cards had just come out.
Yes, they had.
But, it was the one Masters I wanted to go down to because I had a Shisai list for Dark Secrets. But that was the year I had to get my kidneys checked out in hospital, which was most irritating. There's nothing wrong with me. But I missed out that Masters. Hold on. And do we have any tidbits we're allowed to reveal for the imminent future? Or is that still very hush-hush?
There's I'm actually everything that's currently in proofreading. I am currently writing up blogs for the front page of the website, and so I expect those when they're done. Basically, obviously we have to finish the proofreading first, but there's the 2 that I've just shown for these the Shark and Cora that came out for UK Expo. Basically, that's what we would have had to show people if there was a show. There's another 2 that go with that, and these are basically the things that we sort of had to remove during the new edition changeover. One of them was a generic rose that you could take 2 of. We're replacing that with another named rose because I don't think there should be generic roses. So we've got.
I was about to say, didn't she get a name now? Okay.
Yeah, so that will be one that's coming soon.
Okay. Time to have a quick look at the proofing folder again. Ah, yes. Okay, yep.
And there's a couple of things that people have been waiting for a long while. And like I say, we'll put all these into some articles, explain what they're about, and they should be going up on the blog when they're ready.
All right, all good to know. And right, we've been talking for a really long time now. So thanks for stopping by, Jason. Most unexpected, but most welcome.
Yeah, I just saw you on the Discord, so if anybody's on the Discord, always check the voice. I'm here to talk if anybody wants to. Otherwise, I often check the Discord anyway, so if people are asking questions or chatting, it's a good place to go, as well as the forums and the.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for attending. Right, that's it, everyone. Thank you for showing up, watching. I don't need likes and subscribes. I just do this for the pleasure of it. And I have yet to figure out how I can just turn off my broadcast. So